welcome to another booktube video from me, Lauren, from Lauren and the Books. Why does she have a smile on her face? It's because it's book tag day. Now, I do enjoy filming a book tag, and this book tag, the mid-year freakout tag, I think this is one that I've been doing for a really long time. I had a brief look over of my mid-year freakout tag I did last year. I also looked at the, because I did a quarter year freakout tag early, or like quarter year crisis, I think it was called, tag earlier this year. So I didn't want to repeat a lot of the stuff that I'd said in there. And yeah, I was happy in those videos too, so I obviously quite like filming them. So here it is, a list of questions about my reading for the first half of the year. I always like this as a little check-in halfway through the year, and then at the beginning of July, there'll be a video where I talk about my favourite books of the year so far, so the best books of 2023 so far, and that'll be in, yeah, let's say July. Then there's no pressure to get it done. So I'll read all the questions out. I'll write them all down below. Let me know down below in the comments your answer to this question, to the questions, or if you've got a YouTube channel, link it down below and tell me that you've done the tag. Be interested to watch. But let's crack on. So number one question is the obvious question. What's the best book you've read so far in 2023? So there's a whole host of good books I've read. I've been having a bloody good reading year in 2023. I made a little list of the best books that I've read so far. Bear in mind we're filming this at the beginning of June, and there's 9 books on that list already, and they're all absolute bangers. So on any other day, maybe another book would have won. But this is the one I've been thinking about the most recently, and that's I'm a Fan by Sheena Patel. I think this was bolstered by the fact that I really thought this was an amazing book to read, and then once we discussed it for Patreon Book Club, it, like, sort of other avenues of it opened in my mind, and it made me realise sort of like what a clever little thing this is. So yeah, this wasn't a pleasant read by any means, but it was so bloody clever, and I think it's fantastic. So we're following an unnamed narrator, which is something I like in a book anyway, and her obsession with a man that she wants to be with. She calls this man the man I want to be with. He is in a relationship with a partner, a long-term partner, but he also has affairs, and one of the women that he's sleeping with, our unnamed narrator, is stalking her on Instagram, and it sort of comes off of Instagram a little bit as well. So not only is she stalking her, she's sort of looking at the people around her on Instagram and looking at her business and stuff like that, and getting involved with that. And yeah, it really reads like you're on social media. So that was one of the really clever things I found, and like it's got really interesting looks at fandom and what it's like to have like a personality on the internet compared with a private personality and stuff like that. There's just so much going on in here. I've folded over so many things in this book, because not only like it's written in these really sort of like short bits, like I said, it feels like you're scrolling through social media. So one page might just have this. So this is entitled I'm Proud of You, and it just says, it takes me a long time to realise that when the man I want to be with tells me he likes being seen with me in public, what he means is he enjoys what my skin colour says about him to other people. And there's loads of like observations about race, about fandom, about being obsessed with someone, about being obsessed with someone who is out of your reach, and what to do with that feeling inside you. And yeah, it's really, really great. But like I said, there's a grubby feel to it, guys, because some of the thoughts she has, you're reading these her thoughts, and and they're completely unfiltered, and there's a lot of sort of like intrusive thought in there as well. So she might say something that you sort of slightly agree with in terms of social media, and then she'll follow it up with something completely bonkers, and you're like, whoa. Like, it's really confronting. It was really like divisive, I will also say, because a lot of people either really like this or really didn't like this at book club. But yeah, I think this is the one that I've thought about the most, and I will, today is the best book I've read in 2023. So the best sequel that I've read so far in 2023, I'm not much of a sequel reader, but the best sequel I've read, I'd read 3, is Tales from the Tudor Court in the Shadow of Queens. So you'll know that last year I did a reading project where I read all of Alison Weir's books about the 6 Tudor Queens, so Henry VIII's wives, and filmed all of that series. Always love talking about that, and had such a lovely time doing it, and we'll link the playlist of that down below if you'd like to go and check it out. And then this year I sort of, I'm bringing it to a close, and the first book I read this year in order to bring it to the close is this Tales from the Tudor Court in the Shadow of the Queens, which is a collection of short stories that were released alongside the books when they were brought out as ebooks. So there's 2 or 3, I think 3 in Catherine Howard's section. Short stories related to people around the Queen. Well, not even around them, because the Anne Boleyn one's a modern day story. That's the hair I was looking for. But yeah, short stories about the Queen. So, for example, in the Catherine of Aragon one, the story is from the point of view of Arthur, who was the prince that Catherine was brought over to marry. And then, like I said, in the Anne Boleyn one, there's the point of view from a tour guide on the Anne Boleyn walk. And yeah, just lots of different point of views. And it was really, like, for someone who read and loved the 6 Tudor Queens books so much last year, this was a really nice sort of like bonus material sort of thing, and that's what they were bought out of. They were bought out as bonus material. So yeah, I had a great time reading that. So yeah, that was the best sequel I've read, and I'll link that video down below as well. I mean, it's probably on the playlist, just go and do that. A new release I haven't read, but I want to. This is sitting so patiently on my shelf, and I could start reading it now. In fact, I might have a little look at it now. The night I watch Athena Lou die, we're celebrating her TV deal with Netflix. Oh god. So this is Yellowface by Rebecca F. Kwang. I bought this earlier on, in May, when I have picked out my TBR for the Independent Bookshop Week Cozy Reading Night, which is going ahead on the 24th of June, between the hours of 7 PM till 10 PM BST. Come along and join, get on social media. I'll be active on Instagram and Twitter throughout using hashtag Cozy Reading Night. But yeah, I picked this up and then promised myself I would read it on that night. Now I'm so excited to read this. I am so excited. The premise sounds amazing. So it's about Athena Lou and June Hayward. Athena is a literary darling and June is literally nobody, and when Athena dies in a freak accident, June steals her unpublished manuscript and publishes it as her own under the name Juniper Song. But as evidence threatens June's stolen success, she discovers exactly how far she will go to keep what she thinks she deserves. So yeah, sounds amazing, doesn't it? I love that sort of premise. I think it sounds amazing. So yeah, I'm being so patient with this, not reading it, but I can't wait. I cannot wait to pick it up. I cannot. My most anticipated release for the second half of the year is The Christmas Appeal by Janice Hallett. So you'll know that I read, I don't even think it was last year, I think it might have been the year before, I read The Appeal by Janice Hallett and just had an absolute blast with it. Really loved it. And the subsequent books of hers, actually, that's another question coming up a bit later on. So the Appeal was a brilliant book, and then I sort of pushed it upon many people. David's read it. I bought it for friends for Christmas and birthdays and family. My mum and sister read it towards the end of last year and really enjoyed it. And yeah, I thought it was really good fun and like a sort of like rip-roaring like murder mystery that you feel very involved in. It's told through minutes from parish council meetings and notes left for housemates and text messages and emails and leaflets and all of this sort of thing, which I loved. So imagine my delight when I heard that there is a Christmas version of it called The Christmas Appeal, which is coming out for Christmas this year. So that'll be out in October. I will read that in the month of December. I mentioned my Patreon book club earlier, but the Patreon book club started as a Christmas book club, and when I do my book club, I pick a genre, and then every month I give the Patreons a couple of choices, and you get to pick a book from that choice, from the genre. And in December it's often Christmas books, and people just come for the Christmas book club because that's lovely and it's Christmas, and who doesn't want to read a Christmas book? And David always joins in for the Christmas book club as well. And normally I pick a book and David picks a book, and then we battle them against each other and you guys pick, the Patreons pick. But this year we both want to read The Christmas Appeal. So there is no poll. We're both just really keen to read The Christmas Appeal. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that coming out. I'm really looking forward to reading it with David, and I'm really looking forward to discussing it for Patreon book club as well. So lots of excitement about that. Question 5 is biggest disappointment. So imagine the excitement about The Christmas Appeal. Well, imagine that my biggest disappointment was Janice Hallett's book that she brought out earlier this year called The Mysterious Case of the Alperton Angels by Janice Hallett. So David and I started buddy reading this, started filming it, was thinking, yeah, this is going to be really good. Both of us absolutely lost interest in it, couldn't have given a shit about it. We got about halfway through and I was just like, I was feeling no reason I wanted to reach for it or anything, and yeah, just decided against it, which is, well, I say it's unusual, but like I said, I loved The Appeal. I'm so excited about The Christmas Appeal, but the Twyford Code, which was her second book, I tried reading that, well, I read that and I didn't get on with that at all, so it's not really a surprise knowing that I didn't like the Twyford Code. Maybe I'm just an appeal girl, but hopefully I'm a Christmas appeal girl as well. But yeah, this wasn't for me, and yeah, not for David either. We both gave up on it. And then also, Fun Home, a family tragicomic by Alison Bechdel, which is a graphic novel. We read this for Patreon Book Club last month. This year's Patreon Book Club reading, half of it has been like my best books ever. I'm a fan, we read for Patreon Book Club. And half of it has been utter shit. But we still have a great conversation, because even if like I don't enjoy it or other people don't enjoy it, there's so much to discuss still, and it's really interesting to have a discussion with people who either really like the book or really don't like the book, and bringing those ideas together. But yeah, this was too sad, too complex, too literary, too many sort of references to philosophers and stuff, and yeah, I just didn't get on with it at all, and I thought I was going to really love it, so disappointing. The biggest surprise, I've got two biggest surprises, both of which are off of the Women's Prize long list and now shortlist. The first one is The Marriage Portrait by Maggie O'Farrell, and I guess this is a big surprise because I started reading this last year and found it so boring. I got it out from the library and read about 20 pages and was like, I am bored by this, I'm not going to read this. And then I picked it up again this year when it got longlisted and thought, I'll give it another go. And I absolutely loved it. It's one of my favourite books of the year. So yeah, it just goes to show what a couple of months or a change in circumstances can make. But yeah, I really, really love that. So that was a big surprise, to sort of think something was really boring last year and then revisit it this year and have a lovely time with it. I guess the opposite has happened with Demon Copperhead, so that's the other book I wanted to mention. Demon Copperhead, when I was watching a lot of prediction videos and a lot of people were talking about the fact that they thought that Demon Copperhead would be on the Women's Prize for Fiction and other literary shortlists, I was like, bloody hell, that sounds like a really good book. That sounds like something I'm going to really enjoy. But I found it a complete bore fest. I did finish it. I read some of it and listened to some of it because it's really long. But yeah, I found it so boring. I still think it's going to win the Women's Prize though. I still think as a sort of whole project, it's prize winning, but it's not winning any Lauren and the Books prizes. Maybe I should do some Lauren and the Books prizes, but aren't we just watching them now? Me talk about what books I'm enjoying. Okay, so the next question 7 is favourite new author, and this can be a debut author or a new to you author, and this is a new to me author because their first book I've read, well, no, let's go. So it's R.F. Kuang. So it's Rebecca F. Kuang, whose book Yellowface I mentioned earlier, because this sounds amazing. But I also read Babel earlier on this year, which was which I cannot believe was not longlisted or shortlisted for the Women's Prize. Like, unbelievable. And that was such a magical world of a book, with like the world building was amazing and the characters were amazing, and it felt really special, and it made me feel, partly because it's set in Oxford, but when I was reading it, I felt the same way that I felt when I was reading His Dark Materials. Like, it was sort of created for me this special world with metals and things that do different things, and word pairings you can pair together, and there was so much sort of like complexity within this book, but laid out so beautifully that it just felt like I was in there. There's all sorts of stuff about revolution and colonisation, and yeah, it was fabulous, like fantastic, and I already want to reread it. So excited about that. But then to know that I'd had such a good time with that, and that there was another book by the same author coming out this year, which sounds completely different, was very exciting. So yeah, I'm excited that that is my new favourite author, a favourite author for the year for definite, and that I've still got another book to come. I keep coming back to this, but I just can't wait to read it. Newest Fictional Crush. I really struggled with this, and I guess because I don't really crush, which is unusual because I crush on TV people all the time. But yeah, I don't really crush on people very much. And what I've settled on, and I'm not happy with this answer because this is literally, I finished reading this book today, but I finished reading Maame today by Jessica George, which was a great women's contemporary fiction book about a young woman who works who works in the publishing industry, but also a carer for her father who's unwell with Parkinson's. And yeah, so it's all about that and what that's like to be, and having not really lived a life because you've spent so much of your life caring for someone else's life. And there's a character in this book called Sam that is sort of very understanding, and there's a lovely sex scene that involves him, and yeah, I think maybe he is a fictional crush, but that probably is just because I've literally finished the book today, and I was thinking, and I flipped back through all the books that I've read, because I've read, I think it's 55 books I've read so far this year. Let's have a look. 55 books, she's guessed right. And yeah, no one in there I'm fancying too much, so soz. The newest favourite character, and I think I've had to go from Neffy from The Memory of Animals by Claire Fuller, which was a book I read last month. This was a fantastic book. Like I said, I've really read some absolute bangers this year. Really, really has been a fantastic reading year. I'm so happy with what I've been reading and how much I've been getting into it. And The Memory of Animals is a book set during a pandemic, and Neffy is a character of that we're following who has volunteered for a clinical trial to have a vaccine against this virus that's going round, and the virus has sort of slows people down and makes people forget things, and people might forget how to drive when they're driving and crash their car, or just forget where they live, or just all sorts of things. A neurological thing, I think it is. And she volunteers for this vaccine trial and has the vaccine, and then is injected with the virus, and then when she sort of wakes up, all hell has broken loose, and she's in central London in this facility where they're under quarantine, and she can see out the window all of this stuff that's happening, and ugh. But there's also two other storylines. So you're following a storyline of her past and her summers growing up, visiting her dad in Greece, and her relationship with her mum and meeting her sort of significant other. And then there's this last storyline, which is letters to somebody that's entitled H, and you find out during the book whose those letters are to. And yeah, I just thought Neffy as a character, she behaved in a pandemic how I really think I would behave. She sort of like really, so when she woke up in this facility and there was other people in there, she was sort of like trying to rely on them to know what to do, but also knowing that she had a part to play because she's the only one in that facility that's had the vaccine, and eventually she's going to have to go out and find out what's out there and gather supplies and stuff like that. And yeah, I just really enjoyed being in her head, like in the present day, and going back over the memories and hearing the letters. I just thought it was a really, really, really good book. I mean, can I say any better than that? But it was a really, really, really good book. And like I said, I just really enjoyed spending time with Neffy and getting to know her, and then being in her head while all of this was unravelling. So yeah, I'd say she's my fave character. A book that made me cry. God, Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield. I read this in February, again for Patreon Book Club. And it's just so sad. So it's about a couple, Miri and Leah, and I can't remember which one is which, but one of them goes, they work on a submarine and they go on their mission, which is supposed to be back after a few weeks, and isn't, comes back after months. And they're very changed and very different to the way they were before. And it's a sort of observation on what it's like to be there in body but not in mind, and I related a lot of that to sort of like dementia and hearing tales about people who've cared for people with dementia. And you're also hearing from the perspective of the wife that's at home whilst her wife is out at sea, and when is she going to come back, and where is she, why can't I find out any information, and the sort of like desperation of that. And it just made me feel so sad. Like the whole time I was reading it, I was just thinking about like David and what I would do if me and David, I feel sad just talking about it now, what I would do if I was in a situation like that with David, and David had gone to work in a place where you trust and think everything's going to be okay, and then something had gone wrong, and very, very wrong. And yeah, it just made me feel so sad from so many, like the loss of someone, losing someone and coming to terms with that, and then oh no, they're not actually gone, they're back, but they're not the person they were. And oh my god, it was just so sad. And I had to really work out what it was, that because I'm not a big one for reading sad books, but sad is literally the only word I can use to describe this book, but I just kept going back for more. It's beautifully written, like so beautifully written. I listened to the audiobook of it. I've lent it to my cousin since, and she had a great time with it as well, because it's sort of like as well as being this like beautifully written literary fiction book, it's also a fucking horror book, because it's horrific what happens in this book. And it's also a sci-fi book, because there's like real sci-fi aspects to stuff that's happening to the people in this book. But yeah, a book that manages to be many things, and while still remains beautiful at the heart. It was just so sad. It was so sad, guys. And if I think about it for too long, I will cry again. So let's not talk about it. Next up is a book that made me happy, and I've opted for this, but it's hard to do because, again, in the same way that I don't really read many sad books, I don't really read many like happy books, but the reading of this made me very happy because it was such a page turner. I wanted to return it all the time. Anytime I was away from this book, I was thinking, that is time wasted. I could be reading Death of a Bookseller by Alice Slater. This is a grubby little thriller book about bookselling. So two booksellers who work in a chain bookshop called Spines, which, knowing that Alice has worked the majority of her life in Waterstones, will give you an idea of what it's sort of based on. And two seemingly very different booksellers, and the obsession that one has towards the other, and the secrets that one's keeping, and yeah, all sorts of like stuff that's going on there. There's so much sort of like build up and foreshadowing of what is maybe to come, as well as like the intricacies of bookselling, which I'm also really interested in. So it was just like, when I'm talking about it, I've got this massive smile on my face because I had such a good time reading this. And like the way it sort of like whooshes at the end with like what actually happens, I was just like, this is so expertly done, and it was just such a joy to read and really made me happy because I just didn't want to spend any time away from it. So yeah, Death of a Bookseller is the book that made me happiest this year. So far. And then the most beautiful book that I've bought or received so far. So I've got two here. One is a beautiful book because of the front cover, so I'll show you that front cover. It's Hedge Witch by Skye McKenna, and this was sent to me because it's been shortlisted for the Independent Bookshop Week Book Awards, and I mean, just look at it. I love sort of books that have witches in tend to have the bloody best front covers anyway, but look at this. It's got these beautiful little like iridescent leaves and then shiny sort of creatures and stuff in the woods, and I just think it looks beautiful. And I love a sort of beautifully formed paperback as well, like so much, because I mean these are also gorgeous. Like look at that, pink and green together, yes please. This is such a striking front cover, but when a bit of effort goes into a paperback, I'm like, brilliantly done. So that's my favourite front cover of a book I've received. But if we're talking, this is another sort of like, I've gone sort of like a bit abstract with the term beautiful, because this was just a beautiful thing that somebody did for me earlier this year. So David and I are going on our honeymoon at the end of the month, and I was talking about the books that I've still got to film my honeymoon TBR, actually, make decisions on it. But I've been talking for many months, because I've been so looking forward to my honeymoon, about what books I'm planning on taking on my honeymoon. And I've been like, sort of, every time I haul a book or talk about a book, I'm like, oh, maybe that'll go on my honeymoon, or maybe that'll go on my honeymoon. And I got this book out from the library, Still Life by Sarah Winman, and said in that video, oh, if this wasn't a library book, I'd probably take it on my honeymoon, but, and it had a 2-week back sticker, and I was like, I just wouldn't be able to manage it, I don't think. So yeah, never mind, maybe I will, or whatever. Someone messaged me, and I won't give names because I don't think I would want my name said. Someone messaged me and said, if you add that to your wish list, I would love to buy it for you so you can take it on your honeymoon. And that is just such a beautiful thing that somebody would do that for me, and it was so lovely, and it very much echoes the sort of like community vibes that we've got here, and how lovely you all are to me after all these years of filming content. It's been 9 years, guys. So for you guys to still be interested in what I've got to say about books, and for you to be kind enough to purchase me a little present every so often, beautiful. So yeah, absolutely beautiful. So this has got to be one of the most beautiful books I've received this year, and once I've read it, hopefully I'll find it beautiful inside as well as the actual gift of giving it. So yeah, thank you very much. And then 13, the last question is, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? So I've gone for 4 sort of themes, because there's still more. So as I mentioned earlier, I read the 6 Tudor Queens books last year, had a great time with them, and then read In the Shadow of Queens earlier this year, and then now I've got Henry VIII, The Heart and the Crown, which came out May 2023, and this is a book all about Henry's story, and this is going to end the 6 Tudor Queens series on my channel. So I'll be reading this in the style that I've done the other ones. I'll be vlogging them, I'll be dressing as the Queens based on Six the Musical, based on the colours that they wear in Six the Musical, and like listening to the music, and maybe watching a few films that involve Henry VIII and stuff like that, and that will end it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to reading this. I am looking forward to it, but it's fucking massive. It's 615 pages long. So that is one book that I need to read. I've also got this whole, I've got the Cazalet Chronicles. So David's mum bought me the first 2 in the series of the Cazalet Chronicles by Elizabeth Jane Howard. This is the Light Years, and then I've got, in this same spine and front cover, I've got Marking Time, and the whole collection with this spine makes out a beautiful sort of like scene. But I did go to the charity shop and they had the 3rd one. I'm not sure what order they go in, but I've got the 3rd and 4th. So one's called Casting Off and the other one's called Confusion. There is a 5th, but the charity shop didn't have that one. So I would love to get through this as a series in the year. Every time I mention this on the channel, everyone says to me, you're going to really love that series. So this is a consideration for the honeymoon. So this is being considered to be taken away with me, but I'd love to read those. And then I've got this little collection of the Penguin cloth bound classics, but the seasonal editions. So Penguin, continuing to want to take my money all the time, have now released these little cloth bound classics but seasonal editions. So I've got some from the winter, oh no, some from the autumn collection. Let me pull them all together. You can tell because the autumn collection have got these little, so they're all like this with the diamond in the middle with the title, and the autumn ones have got little like autumnal leaves around. The winter ones have got mistletoe leaves. I think these are supposed to be with like little mistletoe berries. And then I guess this is from the summer collection. Happily I don't have any from the spring collection, and they've got sort of like just your normal sort of summer leaves. So I've got 7 books from these collections. You know, Emily, having some dinner. 7 books from these collection which I haven't read, and I would like to have read some by the end of the year, otherwise she's got to stop buying them. So I've got Lady Susan by Jane Austen, Lolly Willows by Sylvia Townsend Warner, and The Lottery by Shirley Jackson. Those are the 3 from the autumn collection. Then I've got the Nutcracker by E.T.A. Hoffman. That is very Christmassy, so this is the winter collection. The Adventure of the Blue Carbuncle by Arthur Conan Doyle. This has other short stories in it, but the actual Blue Carbuncle is a Sherlock Holmes story, I think set at Christmas. Street Haunting by Virginia Woolf. And then from the summer collection, which I bought literally the other day, I've got Summer by Edith Wharton. So they also need reading. And then finally, I like to do a sort of like reading themed month every year, and I've done a few of these. I've done June Eyre, where I've read books that are, I've read Jane Eyre and books that are based on or inspired by Jane Eyre. I've done Pride and Prejudice. I've done June Austen, and last year I did, oh no, was it last year or was it the year before? I think it was last year I did Little Women. Still not happy with that title, Little Women. But this year I'm doing Augusta Christie, and I should have got a book out to commemorate this, but I've got the perfect book to commemorate it. Where is it? Oh, here. So in August I'm going to be reading all books. I'm going to be reading some Agatha Christie books, and I'm going to be reading books about Agatha Christie and books that have been inspired by Agatha Christie. And I got this from my sister-in-law for my birthday last year. This is Lucy Worsley's memoir of Agatha Christie, A Very Elusive Woman. So yeah, that's another sort of like reading project I've got going on. So plenty to be getting on with, I guess. So yeah, I do love to film a book tag. I hope you've enjoyed watching this as much as I've enjoyed filming it. As I said, let me know your answers to some of the questions down below. If you have a little look at those, I've typed them all below. Let me know if you've done this on your channel, and I'll see you all again soon for another book tube video. Goodbye!